Sunday dinner felt like a setup. My sister said, "You're basically a guest at this point." My dad smiled. I stayed silent. 3 days later, I pulled out of the mortgage agreement, froze the legal fund I managed, and notified the county of the trust reallocation. That night, the group chat exploded. "Why is the house on hold?" Then came the call from the attorney. "They're panicking. What should I tell them?" I smiled and replied, "I've been letting it slide for years." The snide remarks, the guilt trips, the way they spoke to me like I was some walking wallet they happened to be related to. At first, I chalked it up to family dynamics. Everyone's family has their quirks, right? But over time, it stopped feeling like quirks and started feeling like something a loadier. Control, entitlement, manipulation disguised as tradition. And I had enabled all of it. That Sunday dinner was the moment it stopped. I'd been debating whether or not to show up. The group chat had been suspiciously sweet all week. Shelby asking if I was coming. Mom saying she was making my favorite. Even Dad pretending to care if I brought dessert. I should have known it was bait. But I showed up anyway because even after everything, I still held on to that flicker of obligation. Maybe part of me wanted to believe they hadn't changed completely. Or maybe I just needed to see it one more time to be sure. Dinner was tense from the start. They were laughing louder than usual, overly friendly with each other, barely acknowledging me. I kept my mouth shut and played along. Shelby asked about my work, but I could tell she wasn't listening. My dad kept cracking jokes that were clearly aimed at me. I didn't react. I just waited. Then mid-meal, Shelby set her fork down and said it. "You're basically a guest at this point." Nobody flinched. Not Mom. Not Dad. That was the plan all along. Let Shelby say it so the rest of them could pretend it wasn't their idea. My dad grinned like it was a roast, like I was supposed to laugh. But I didn't. I just sat there chewing my food, watching the 3 people I bailed out more times than I could count act like I was some stranger who had overstayed his welcome. 3 days before that, Shelby asked me to co-sign a loan for a new car. She was smug about it like it was a formality. She didn't even explain why she needed it. Just assumed I'd do it. I told her no. She got pissed. Said I didn't understand how hard things were for her. That I was privileged and cold. She didn't mention the last car I helped her get. The one she wrecked after 6 months and never finished paying for. She didn't mention the 10 grand she still owed me. Just went straight to guilt. I told her again. No. She hung up. That was the last time we spoke before dinner. After she dropped the guest comment, I stayed silent. Didn't defend myself. Didn't argue. Just smiled a little and finished eating. It was like something snapped into place. The years of bending over backward, quietly cleaning up their messes, transferring funds when they fell behind on bills, co-signing loans I had no business being part of. I saw it all clearly now. They didn't respect me. They didn't appreciate me. They saw me as a resource. And they were finally comfortable enough to say it out loud. That night, I went home and opened my files. First thing I did was pull out of the mortgage agreement Shelby had applied for. She didn't know how deep my involvement ran. How the only reason she was pre-approved was because I backed the numbers with a silent guarantee. She'd been bragging about the townhouse for months. It was already in escrow. I canceled everything. Quietly. No warning. Then I froze the family legal fund. My grandfather had left a pool of money in a trust to handle the zoning case on our old property. Guess who he made trustee? I stopped payments immediately and locked the account. Finally, I contacted the county and filed notice for trust reallocation. The trust my family assumed was set in stone. Set to divide evenly wasn't. Grandpa gave me authority to adjust it based on need and merit. I had the paperwork. I had the legal power. And I'd had enough. The next night, the group chat went nuclear. Why is the house on hold? The bank is saying you pulled out. Did you touch the legal fund? I said nothing. Let it simmer. Then the attorney called me. They're panicking, he said. They're saying everything's falling apart. What should I tell them? I leaned back, watched the messages keep rolling in, and said calmly, tell them the guest took his name off the welcome mat. I think part of them believed it was just a tantrum that I'd pull the plug for a day or two. get over whatever I was feeling and come crawling back to smooth everything over. That's how it always went before. I'd say no. They'd react like children and I'd eventually cave, drop a wire transfer, offer a solution, fix the mess, rinse, repeat. But this time felt different because I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. The group chat lit up the next morning. It started with Shelby, of course. Why would you sabotage my house? You knew how important this was to me. No apology, no curiosity, no asking if something had happened. Just blame. That's always been her style. Burn the bridge, then scream from the other side. I didn't answer. She followed up with 3 more texts in a row. Seriously, you're just going to ignore me now. You're ruining this for no reason. You're being disgusting. Still nothing from me. Then Mom jumped in. I don't know what's going on, but this isn't how family acts. Classic, vague, and moralizing, as if I'd stolen from them or lied or cheated instead of simply backing out, refusing to prop them up anymore. Dad came in next, and his was the one that really set the tone. Wow. After everything we've done for you, this is low. What exactly had they done for me? I couldn't think of a single thing in the past decade that hadn't come with strings or expectations or debt disguised as love. I left them all on read. Shelby didn't like that. She messaged me directly again. If I lose this house, it's your fault. You knew I needed your name on it. You don't care what happens to me. That's when I knew for sure. She really thought it was mine to fix. My role to carry her over the finish line because she wanted something. I didn't reply. I just watched as her desperation turned into threats. I'll tell everyone what you did. You look insane. This is sick. The thing was, I didn't care anymore what I looked like. Not to them. They'd spent years making sure I never got to just be a brother or a son. I was the provider. And the second I stopped providing, they turned on me like I was nothing more than a broken ATM. Later that day, I got a call from the bank managing Shelby's mortgage. They asked if I was formally backing out of the guarantee. I told them yes. They asked for a written confirmation. I sent it over within the hour. By 5:30 p.m., the loan was officially suspended. She must have found out fast because 5 minutes later she tried calling me 6 times in a row. Then came the texts. I had a contractor lined up. I already paid the application fee. What am I supposed to do now? You just cost me $4,000. You are actually evil. I didn't answer. Then the calls started coming from numbers I didn't recognize. One was the contractor told me Shelby had promised him a deposit by Friday and asked if I'd be issuing it. I told him, that sounds like something you'll want to take up with her. Then I hung up. Around 9 p.m., my dad called. You're overreacting. You're blowing this way out of proportion. He said, I didn't say anything. She's your sister. Family needs to help each other. This isn't right. Still nothing. This is going to tear the family apart. I finally spoke. Then maybe it needed to be torn. He paused, then muttered something about how I'd regret this and hung up. That night, I sat outside with a drink and watched the stars. My phone was vibrating constantly. New messages, missed calls, voicemails I had no interest in hearing. I just let it keep buzzing. They weren't panicking because they loved me. They were panicking because the scaffolding was falling and they never thought I'd be the one to knock it down. And none of them had any idea what was coming next. The first morning after pulling the plug, I expected chaos. Screaming voicemails, maybe someone showing up at my door. Instead, it was quiet. Too quiet. Felt like the eye of the storm. Calm only because the real damage hadn't hit yet. I got out of bed without checking my phone. Made coffee, opened my laptop. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I had no one depending on me that morning. No bills to cover. No emergencies to fix. No thinly veiled pleas for help disguised as casual texts. Just silence. It didn't last. Around noon, Man showed up at my office. I knew something was up the second I saw her car in the lot. She hates driving downtown. Said it gives her nerves. But apparently this couldn't wait. She walked in like she had every right to be there. Didn't even knock. Just opened the door and said, "We need to talk." She didn't waste time. Said she didn't understand what I was doing. Said I was hurting Shelby for no reason. Then she launched into the same tired script. Shelby stressed. The house was her fresh start. She's been trying so hard. Not one word about the years of support I'd given. Not one mention of the thousands I covered when Shelby was drowning in credit card debt. Not one acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't entirely my fault. Then she switched gears, tried the softer approach. We're your family. Families don't shut each other out. I said nothing, just looked at her. She paused, then went straight for the real reason she was there. Your father's not doing well. His blood pressure's been all over the place. He's not sleeping. It always came back to Dad's health when she wanted something. I'd heard that line before dozens of times. Anytime I questioned something, anytime I pushed back, Dad's heart, Dad's stress. It was the ultimate silencer. I stood up and opened the door. I'm in the middle of something, I said. She stared at me like I just spoke in another language. Like the idea of me having boundaries was foreign. Then she left slowly, not saying another word. 2 hours later, I got an email from the family attorney. Subject line urgent. Call me now. I called. He didn't even say hello. They're trying to bring in another lawyer. Says they want to challenge your role with the trust. I almost laughed. They don't have a case. They don't? Your grandfather made sure of that. But they're calling it a misuse of power. They can call it whatever they want. He paused. They want a family meeting. No lawyers at the house. I told him I'd think about it. I didn't. Instead, I made another call, this time to the county office. The trust reallocation paperwork had been sitting on my desk halfway done. I'd been holding off, not out of hesitation, but out of habit. Some small part of me still defaulted to giving them chances. That part was dead now. I filed the final documents and added a clause that required quarterly audits for any family member accessing trust funds. Audits going back 2 years with penalties for missing documentation. And I knew without needing to check that not a single one of them had kept a record of what they spent. They thought it was free money unlimited. That night the group chat was silent. Eerily so. No Shelby, no Mom, no angry texts from Dad. Nothing. Which meant they weren't finished. They were regrouping, planning their next angle. Let them. They still thought I was playing defense. They had no idea I'd only just started playing offense. I thought I'd seen the worst of them. I thought guilt and shouting and emotional blackmail was the extent of what they could pull. I was wrong. The next morning, I opened my front door to a woman with a badge and clipboard. She introduced herself from Child Protective Services and asked if I was harboring a minor. I blinked at her, completely thrown. No, I said. I live alone. I've never even had a child in this house. She nodded like she already knew. We received an anonymous report of child neglect at this address. Said there may be a minor in unsafe conditions. She didn't look convinced by the claim, which told me everything. Someone had filed a false report, a serious one. She had to check because it was protocol, but the look in her eyes said she'd seen this kind of garbage before. Weaponized lies. After she left, I stood on the porch for a long minute before walking over to check the security camera footage. I pulled the clips, scanned through the past few days, and there it was, Shelby. 2 nights ago, she walked up to the mailbox just before midnight, shoved something inside, then turned around and left without knocking. That was it. That was the last line. She could insult me, ignore everything I'd done for her, turn the family against me. Fine. But dragging state agencies into it, trying to get me flagged in a system I had no business being in, that wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. I forwarded the video to my lawyer and filed a formal report about the false claim. Then I made a note to dig deeper into Shelby's trust disbursements. She just made herself the first person I planned to audit. By mid-afternoon, the family attorney called again. He sounded less polished this time, like he hadn't slept. Your father's threatening legal action. He said he met with a lawyer this morning. Wants to challenge your authority over the zoning fund. He can try, I said. He'll need receipts. The attorney was quiet for a second. I don't think they're ready for that. Neither did I. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I spent the rest of the day digging. I pulled the last 12 months of the zoning fund activity and sorted through every expense. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Personal dinners labeled as board consultations, hotel stays during site inspections that were nowhere near the property, payments to companies that didn't seem to exist. I flagged everything. By the time I finished, I had over 30 pages of irregularities. That night, I sent the entire report to the estate trustee, my grandfather's oldest friend, and the only person they hadn't managed to manipulate. The next morning, I got an email back from him. Just one line. "Jack, you did the right thing. I'll handle the rest." I didn't even have to ask what that meant. I knew. That afternoon, I got the call I expected. Dad's personal credit line was frozen. His lawyer backed out of the case before it even began. The estate trustee had pulled rank and shut down all fund access pending investigation, which meant not just Shelby's plans, but my parents, too. Every backup scheme, every quiet slush account was locked tight. At 1:32 a.m., I got a single message from Shelby. "What did you do to Dad's account?" "No." "Hi." No pretense. Just panic. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The group chat had gone quiet again. Mom hadn't said a word since showing up at my office. Dad sent one final message that morning. "You're going to regret this. We'll see what the board says." I read it twice, smiled, and closed the app. They still thought this was about the trust, about money. But what I had just cut them off from wasn't financial. It was power control. That unspoken assumption that I'd always fold, always save them, that was gone now. And I wasn't done. Not yet. Because there was still one more thing they were clinging to. And I was about to take that away too. After Dad's final message, his weak threat about the board, I expected silence. And for a while, that's what I got. But it wasn't peace. It was a pause, a shift in strategy. When people like my family lose control, they don't give up. They scramble. What they didn't know was that I was done playing defense. They thought they could outmaneuver me, wait me out, use lawyers or pity or lies. But the truth was, I wasn't just severing the financial ties. I was dismantling their entire foundation piece by piece. And the next piece was the cabin. Our family cabin in Mendocino wasn't just a piece of property. It was their legacy symbol. They brought it up every Thanksgiving, every Christmas. "We built that with our bare hands," Dad would say, even though it was fully paid for with my grandfather's money. It was the one thing they all still had access to, technically still in the trust, still usable. But I had found something in the trust charter last week. Something small buried in the legalese. If a trustee found evidence of unethical use or behavior compromising the family's legacy, they could relocate or restrict access to any property within the trust permanently. I filed the motion with the trustee board that morning, attached the CPS report, the audit, and the footage of Shelby slipping the letter into my mailbox. I didn't even have to argue my case. They approved it in 2 hours. By sunset, the family cabin was locked out of the shared access pool. The keys no longer worked. The passcode was changed, and the new deed under temporary restriction was issued with only one active key holder. Me. I didn't tell them. I waited. Saturday morning, Dad drove up to the cabin. I know because I got the security alert on my phone. 5 failed entries. 1 attempted window opening. Then he called me straight to voicemail. Then Shelby, then Mom, 3 missed calls, then 4, then 8. At 4:47 p.m., the group chat came back to life. "What do you mean the cabin is restricted? You have no right to touch that place." Grandpa would be disgusted. I let them stew in it for a few hours. Then I finally replied, "It's a legacy property. The legacy's been compromised." No one replied after that. That night, I sat by my window sipping a drink, watching the city lights blink like a calm heartbeat. I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. I thought maybe Mom would try one more guilt trip, but nothing came. Instead, I got a letter in the mail on Monday from Dad. Handwritten. Inside was a single line. "You've made your point. Can we talk?" I folded it back into the envelope and threw it in the trash because he still didn't get it. This wasn't about making a point. It was about making it stop. After the cabin, there was no coming back. They knew it. I knew it. The silence that followed wasn't strategic anymore. It was stunned. The kind of silence that hangs after something breaks, and no one wants to be the first to admit it. The letter from Dad was their final attempt. No apology, no acknowledgement, just "Can we talk?" Like I was still within reach. Like the damage they'd done was reversible with a coffee and some forced smiles. I didn't answer. I didn't even consider it. I'd spent years watching them operate, bending every situation to make themselves the victim, the center, the exception. I was done handing them opportunities to rewrite the past. The trustee board followed up that week. They thanked me for the audit, asked if I'd be stepping down after the restructure. I told them, no, not yet. There were still a few things I needed to finish, like the foundation account, technically in my mother's name, but funded entirely through the trust. It was supposed to be a community outreach program. I found 4 travel bookings to Aruba, 3 dinners in New York, and a wellness grant for a friend of hers who didn't exist. I froze the account. 2 days later, she called. First time since her office visit. I let it ring. Then the voicemail came through. You've made your point. We're sorry. Okay. Please, just don't make this any worse. I almost laughed. Not, we were wrong. Not, we used you. Just don't make this worse. That same day, I received an email from Shelby. No subject line, just one sentence. I hope you feel powerful. I didn't reply, but I did feel something lighter, like I had finally walked out of a house that had been slowly filling with smoke. I closed every last remaining account with my name attached to theirs, removed them from every emergency contact list, revoked shared access to anything financial, and sent formal letters to the estate stating I would no longer act on their behalf for any matter, personal, legal, or financial. And then I took a vacation, a real one. I drove up to the cabin, my cabin now, and sat by the fireplace reading for 3 days straight. No notifications, no calls, just silence. The good kind. Before I left, I changed the locks again. Not out of fear, out of clarity. Because I knew the next time they came knocking, it wouldn't be to apologize. It would be to rebuild the bridge. And this time, there wouldn't be one. It's been 3 months since I cut them off completely. No voicemails, no texts. The group chat is a digital ghost town. Just frozen screenshots of their final tantrums sitting there untouched. I haven't deleted it. Not for sentiment, just for clarity. Proof that it happened and how fast it all crumbled once the money stopped. Shell's townhouse deal collapsed for good. She had to break her lease. And last I heard, through someone else, not her, she moved back in with a friend from college. She never apologized. Not once. She still believes she was entitled to what I took away. Like I stole something instead of simply stopping the bleeding. Mom's foundation is gone. The bank froze everything after my report and the trustee board made it official 2 weeks ago. Dissolved due to misuse of funds. She tried to claim she was unaware of them classifications, but they didn't buy it. I didn't either. The wellness grants, the luxury flights, the silent partners, she knew. She just didn't think anyone would ever check. Dad's zoning appeal was denied again last week. The estate trustee sent me a copy of the rejection letter. I didn't even bother reading it in full. I already knew how it ended. And me, I've slept better than I have in years. No late-night transfers, no walking on eggshells, no sinking feeling every time I saw a family member's name pop up on my phone. It's like someone finally opened a window in a house I didn't realize had been suffocating me. Sometimes I find myself wondering if they sit around and talk about it. If they ever say it out loud that this didn't happen all at once and it didn't happen for no reason, but I doubt it. They weren't built for accountability, only excuses, only spin. There won't be some reunion with tears and hand-holding and talk of starting over. That's TV stuff. In real life, some fractures don't heal. Not because they can't, but because they were never clean breaks. They were slow splits stretched over years. And by the time they snap, there's nothing left to fix. So no, we're not talking. We won't. Some things stay broken, and sometimes that's the only way they stop hurting.